Let's talk about this further. The President's speech on the eve of the nation's 78th Independence Day. We have our expert guest with us. Senior journalist Ashok Tandon is now joining us. Good evening to you. Tandonji, what do you make of the President's address? How was it in keeping with the theme also for India's 78th Independence Day, which is Viksit Bharat at 2047?
No, if you remember in the very beginning, the president talked about, Har Ghar Tiranga. Now, this campaign, which the Prime Minister started a couple of years ago, now it has become a mass movement. And it is, being celebrated with a huge participation. That gives some kind of a new impetus to the celebration of Independence Day, because it is no longer, it's not merely a ritual where the Prime Minister will unfurl a flag at the ramparts of the Red Fort. No, every citizen is participating it with this campaign of Har Ghar Tiranga. Now, that was one thing which was very significant. Another significant feature which I noticed was that over the decades, some of the very prominent freedom fighters were not being mentioned anywhere. Now we see the mention in the president address of, Sardar Patel, Bhagat Singh, in fact, also about Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. And leave aside that, the tribal leaders who waged war for independence never figured anywhere. Now, Birsa Munda, his 150th anniversary is coming. Like that, many other tribal leaders have also figured very prominently in the presidential address. That is something very remarkable, that now we are also remembering and celebrating the sacrifices of the tribal freedom fighters. Now, that was something which was very significant. Apart from that, the president also listed all the achievements of this government in various fields. But I think emphasis was on social justice. And she quoted B.R. Ambedkar said that democracy without social justice is not complete. And then she listed the schemes, the campaigns which the government has launched for upliftment of emancipation of women, backward section, deprived sections of the society. And then another very landmark paragraph in her speech was India is becoming the fifth largest economy in the world and now moving toward becoming the third largest economy in the world. So, like that, the constitution, the significance of the constitution was also highlighted in the context that the government is strictly following the constitutional provision. There is no undermining of the constitution in any respect. So, and then if we look at it, there is a mention of achievements in the sports, space, Gaganyaan being launched next year, and our space program, and a host number of achievements, agriculture sector, Annadata scheme. So,
Yes, and her speech also found mention of more recent initiatives taken by the government, be they part of the union budget or even otherwise. For example, she mentioned the internship scheme. She mentioned how there's a lot of money that's been outlaid for skilling of the youth as well. She even mentioned the fact that, which is quite recent, the improvement of birth rate and how it reflects that the condition of women in general is improving in the country.
See, the recent schemes which have been launched for the welfare of the youth, 4.1 crore youth is going to get benefited from that. The internship scheme also was mentioned very significantly. And one important aspect was the recently held general elections. India is the largest democracy. It was the biggest exercise of democratic process in the world. And she thanked the Election Commission and the paramilitary forces and all security forces who worked to make this as a great success. So I think some of the highlights which we may like to mention is about India's vibrant democracy, India's tradition, India's culture, India's heritage, and that makes Indian democracy a huge success and strong.
Yes, you mentioned social justice. The President also talked about climate justice.
Yes, and then see two very significant things she mentioned in respect of empowerment. One was about the women empowerment, And then the climate, she emphasized, she listed all the schemes which the government has launched for the welfare of women, and also emphasized on the climate also. And these things, particularly, he appealed to the people also to make their contribution in respect of the climate related issues.
Yes. And in terms of how India sees its track going forward, the kind of forward looking things that are expected to be unfolding in the coming years, were there inklings of that as well in her speech?
Yes, of course she did. But the mention of the new criminal justice, law which has been enabled, that was also very prominently figured. Our achievements in the sports field. She also mentioned when India winning the T20 World Cup in cricket, and the efforts of the Indian contingent in the Paris Olympic. So youth also, as we said earlier, figured very prominently, and the welfare scheme which the government has launched in the social area, the economic emancipation, and 80 crore people getting free ration. All these schemes are basically the initiatives of Modi government, which of course the president has mentioned in her eve of the Independence Day address to the nation.
Certainly. She also had a word of praise for the policy that has been implemented since 2020, and now she said that it's showing results. Now, what kind of results was she referring to?
Yes, while referring to the new education policy, the president said that it is their energy and enthusiasm that will help the nation scale new heights, cultivating the young minds and creating a new mindset that takes the best of the tradition and the contemporary knowledge is our priority. And to this end, national education policy launched in 2020 has already started showing results. So that was the paragraph, I think, which made a mention of the success of the new education policy.
And if we were to look forward to tomorrow, which is the Independence Day, and we will have Prime Minister Modi again at the ramparts of the Red Fort. Every year we hear him announce something new, whether it's an initiative or an achievement or some kind of proposal also. So what can one really expect this time around, Ashok Tandonji?
I think during his election campaign, the Prime Minister hinted that his third inning would be full of new initiatives, and let's wait for that. But I think most of the initiatives or scheme which Prime Minister may launch from the rampart of the Red Fort would be for the welfare scheme of all sections of the society, especially the agriculture sector, the farmers, the tribal belt, all deprived sections of the society, and and the vision of 2047 when we are talking about the Viksit Bharat, Atmanirbhar Bharat, how we can achieve that target in the run up to 2047. A new roadmap may be outlined by the Prime Minister at his address to the nation from the ramparts of the Red Fort tomorrow morning.
Right. Well, we all look forward to that event that happens in the morning around 8 o'clock Indian Standard Time. Thank you so much for joining us for the moment, Ashok Tandon.